we were talking about media consumption, and one of my friends I was talking to today, he actually just gave a talk about, well, it was more spiritual. He was talking about consecrating your time and, you know, how are you spending it? What kind of media you're consuming around those lines? And it reminded me a lot of that thing you say. I don't know if it's a quote from you or if it's a quote from...
It's a quote from a book that I heard from a guy on YouTube who read that book.
We've looked up and down the internet and we cannot find where
No
it's
clue.
from.
I was watching his videos earlier today trying to find the video where he says the quote and says what book it's from. Couldn't find it.
No. But it is...
Most information is useless and most time is wasted.
Hence the title of this podcast.
Boom.
Do you want to open up the show today? You never do it.
Sure, let's see if I remember the words. Welcome to the Forest Creek Podcast. I'm Jared.
I'm Raph. Look at that, you did it.
There you go.
You helmed
Today's
the show.
episode is about useless information and wasting time.
Yes. Because most information
Is useless.
and most time is...
Wasted.
Yeah. So we're going to do our best to be as useful and least wasteful as possible on the show, even though I often do have to waste a lot of time cutting things out.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a waste of time because you're cutting out the useless information.
I mean, yes, but sometimes perhaps I overdo it and then I end up wasting time
Oh yeah, over editing.
over editing the show.
No thanks.
Yeah. You said you watched a video that was a half an hour long explaining?
Something like that. It's this guy that does long-winded explanations
Right.
about stuff, but they're pretty interesting. But you know what? Most of that information was useless.
Arguably all of it.
And I would say all of that time was wasted.
You are someone who I believe consumes a lot of YouTube in particular.
Way too much.
Way too much.
Yeah, and most of it is useless and waste of time. And what's interesting is that I know that.
Because you watched a YouTube video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Well, that was sort of an eye-opener, but you always know these sorts of things. You
Yeah.
know when you're wasting time or not.
Oh, yeah. No. I spent most of my childhood playing video games when I should have been doing homework.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh,
We
yeah.
know that. You know it's wasted.
When I was a high schooler, I didn't think it was wasted. I thought doing homework was a waste of time.
There are more and more kids now who are like, I'm going to make a career streaming this. You know?
Yep.
And they're like, I'm very witty in front of the camera. I'll
It's
be
probably
a vlogger.
It's probably dead and failed now, but I remember a couple years ago I saw an ad for a Let's Play College. Learn how to stream stuff like learn how to have a successful channel. Like you could freaking Google this crap.
I will never fault the person who starts those things. I'll always fault the people who sign up for it.
Yeah.
In my opinion, Hustlers Academy, great idea. Signing up for Hustlers Academy,
Terrible idea.
idiot. Why would you do that? It's like it says all of the information for free anyway. You know? Yeah, but I mean, I listen to hours and hours of podcasts a day. I can't say everything on there has been useful.
Do you like constantly listen to podcasts? This is like a thing people were saying more and more to me that I never do.
I think I was doing it before a lot of other people were, to be honest. In that, like, before Spotify podcasts really took off, I would like download this, literally downloading MP3s from YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the first one I got really into listening to was the Rooster Teeth podcast,
Oh.
which a lot of people listen to. That was around the time where podcasts were still working their way to popularity.
I
Like
could never get into it.
Radiolab has been around for a long time, and they're like, if you think I overproduce, you should see Radiolab is like everything is super engineered, and they like use sound effects and bits from other TV shows and stuff like that in there. It's like really well produced. They do an excellent job out of it. But these people have been around for a long time, or I don't know what the name of the show is, but I also remember the guy's name is I'm Ira Glass, and you're listening to blah 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 blah. Like it's very. It used to just be. They call them podcasts. You could only get them on iPods.
Oh yeah.
It used to just be an Apple
I
Music
think
thing.
about that every now and then. It's only called a podcast because it was on iPods.
And I don't use anything Apple.
No.
Our podcast isn't even up on Apple. Because I guess we still haven't been
We're
approved.
boycotting it.
We haven't been approved for Apple yet.
Wow.
Look at
I
that.
don't think we ever will.
That's
be.
an advertising point for us. We're not Apple approved. Yeah, I listen to a ton of podcasting. I would say now it's more useful, more interesting, and educational information. When I was younger, it was a lot of comedy shows. It was a lot of Dungeons and Dragons shows and stuff like that. Yeah. Which are fun,
Dude.
but
I've spent so many hours watching Critical Role. It's crazy.
I
And I
watched.
haven't even watched that much compared to a lot of people I've heard.
I was really into the Rocket Jump people for a while. And they used to do a podcast called Story Break.
Oh, dude, I remember your...
loved that show.
Yeah.
It was like a small love affair, but they stopped doing it, so
Oh.
sad.
Rip.
Yeah. They'd rather do Dungeons and Daddies now for some reason. I guess they have more fun there, but it was
Also probably have more followers.
it was an interesting thing to listen to, like as somebody who's interested in stories, at least, you know? But I can't say that everything I listen to even now is that useful.
No.
Pretty much everything that I listen to that isn't the Forest Creek podcast is a waste of time. And I'd like
could
to
agree
say
with that.
that's the same for everybody else in the world.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's a truth right there.
But what do you listen to that is useful? What do you watch that's useful?
So that's where we'll get to that in a sec.
Okay.
Because the context for this quote, where I heard it, was specifically when it comes to business and becoming successful. So the thing this guy said with most time is wasted and most information is useless that really struck me is that it's like, with the information that is most information is useless. We're always bombarded constantly with information and people telling us to care about this and care about that and listen to this thing and do that thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have to do any of that. You don't have to listen to any of that.
Yeah.
Because you can choose what is important to you. You could either be a sponge that absorbs all the information that everybody gives you at any point, or you can be a filter and you can decide that's useless, that's useless, that's useless, and you can bypass all of that uselessness. And for time, most time is wasted when it comes to the context in terms of like business and being successful. One thing this guy said that blew my freaking mind, it's like that hit me, was he said, you want to make more money? Work 2 8-hour jobs. Easy, done.
Which is insane.
Well,
to work 16 hours. Well, at least it feels insane.
Yeah, it does. But it struck me in that I never thought that I didn't have to entertain myself, essentially. I could do other things during that time.
Yeah.
Because my routine that I grew up with and learned was wake up in the morning, go to work for 8 hours, come home and entertain yourself, and then go to bed.
Well, we're big believers in self-care now.
Yeah.
Right? And
yeah.
we want to manage burnout, and we think, okay, the best way to do that is when you get home, turn on Netflix or something. Which isn't true. Like, even to get a hobby, you know, like do something fun, do something that you're going to play. Like, it's not true that you need to consume media to do that.
Yeah, I mean, one thing this guy also said, for reference, this guy is tech lead on YouTube.
You can bring this closer to you, by the way.
Oh, sure. One thing he mentioned is that being successful is a hobby like anything else. You've got to put time into it. And so when he was talking about this idea of most time is wasted and one thing to get more money is just work 2 8-hour jobs.
I should clarify, that's being successful as an entrepreneur or as somebody who makes money. Because you can do one job and just be successful with that.
Yes, this is talking about making more money, making lots of money, whatever.
Generating more income.
Yeah, that whole idea. Because it's like, oh, if the amount you're making isn't good enough right now, the general thought process is, well, I've got to work harder so I get a promotion so I make more money, when you could just work a part-time job in your off hours. So finish your 8-hour job and now go work at a bar or work at a club or something for 4 or 6 hours. Something that's reasonable, or whatever you want. And there you go, more income.
So 2 things. One, I'd like to break down what we're talking about here in the barest of bones is if you have a goal in mind and you have a long-term idea of what you want your life to look like, then consider that the information that you're taking that is not helping you reach that goal is useless information.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and that's where this quote can be applied to different things. I think the wisdom in it, because it doesn't always have to be applied to the whole idea of hustle culture and getting more money.
Yeah.
Because money is just money at the end.
We're just kind of into
paper.
hustle. It's a good place to kind of get some lessons about how to do what you're doing already more successful.
I think one thing this guy also mentioned that is pretty true and everybody knows is what's more valuable than money is time.
Yes.
Because if you have no time to spend on your money, then what's the point of the money?
You can get money back. You cannot refund time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't get time back. And so it's the whole idea, applying this quote to our lives is having a more ultimate goal and then letting that be the framework around what you decide what information is useless and what time is wasteful.
Is what I'm doing right now in service of that larger goal?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean never watch Netflix.
Yeah.
No.
No, not at all.
Because you need it. You need to entertain yourself every once in a while. There's a purpose to life, and
it's like have your free time, do
Yeah.
whatever you want, but
Yeah.
with that free time, decide how much is your rest and recovery, and how much is okay. I've done the rest and recovery, and now I'm just continuing in laziness, and this is a waste of time.
Even so, like rest and recovery is different from entertainment.
I'm not so sure.
I would say rest and recovery can be a priority. Being entertained cannot be a priority.
Yeah. Well,
Right?
I think entertainment can like be involved in that.
Yeah.
Because I'll be like doing house chores or whatever, and that's a good use of my time because I like to live in a clean environment. But I'll stop partway through because I'm like, okay, I've worked for half an hour, 40 minutes, whatever. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to just do whatever. And so I'll watch a video, I'll play a game, I'll read a book, I'll do whatever.
Yeah.
But that entertainment right there is part of that rest. And I actually know I'll get a feeling when I've hit a point where I've now entertained myself. This is the end point, but I decide to keep going, and I now know that this is a waste of time. I've gone too far now. And sometimes I'll be like, oh, that's my end point, and I'll end.
Well, I mean, like when I say rest and recovery, I include in that sleep.
Yeah.
And I just
Yeah.
think like, okay, if I'm doing something that's entertaining me, I don't want to prioritize that over my sleep.
Yes.
So when the alarm goes off, when it comes to 11 o'clock, I see the little notification pops up on my phone, tells me it's time for bed. The disciplined practice is to stop what I'm doing and then stop looking at screens altogether.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll listen to a podcast while I'm brushing my teeth.
Yeah.
Or getting ready for bed. But then at a certain point, I know I have to turn that off too.
Yeah.
So that I can just be a little bit of quiet time, read a couple pages from a book, and then go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
I call that the RNR. If a screen is on, if I'm doing something loud, that's a lot of activity. If I'm playing a sport or something, I don't consider that rest and recovery, obviously. I consider rest and recovery literally the stop working your brain and start getting ready to go to bed. That's
Yeah.
my RNR.
Yeah.
Right? Entertainment, it's like giving your brain a break from working all day. In my day, somehow I fit time for three things. Right? I'll do my regular day job, I'll work a side hustle, and then I'll do work on this stuff, Forest Creek stuff.
Yeah.
Whether it's getting ready for our business or getting ready to develop more content. That is a lot. That's like more than 12 hours of work in my day. I need to fit in an hour of working out in the morning. I need to fit in an hour of quiet time before I go to bed.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a little bit of exercise time. There's a little bit of R&R. Sometimes I'll feel the need to okay, my brain is really tired today. Let me fit in an hour of just watching TV.
Yeah.
Right? Something like that. Let me fit an episode in. That's the entertainment.
Yeah.
So that's why I draw a distinction between entertainment and R&R.
Yeah, I think that's where it's like I sort of categorize sleep as its own thing. So I think that point you just made is perfect, where it's like, oh, my brain's at this point right now, so I'm just going to watch TV or play a video game or do whatever. I think that's part of what I would categorize in rest, because brain's too much, can't take it, let's just not think right now.
I see.
Let's do that thing. So that's a wakeful resting, resting while you're awake.
Yeah, no, I get that. The other thing I really liked about what you said was not being an information sponge. I think there's some things out there that trick you into thinking that they're useful.
Yeah.
One big contender for that is news, right? Because when you're following news, you're like, I'm taking information in, I'm learning about the world. Some of this information is useful, like it's reports about local events that's happening around me, but to a very large extent, it's not useful to you.
Yeah.
COVID is an excellent example to me. Because so many people have like a million billion facts in their head about like how you're supposed to wear a mask and what are the death rates like today and all this stuff, like how many people are getting sick in Malaysia or something like that. It's like, it's so much of it sounds useful and yet is completely inapplicable to your life. Especially when a lot of the information would just change on a dime. Yeah. I'm not ridiculing people who tried to stay up and do their duty here, but were you really? To the most extent,
well, that's the thing, because it was annoying to have to go through the whole thing of okay, this is the process, now the opposite's the process, now the in-between is the process. Like, well, which is it?
Let's use a more modern example. Why is it useful to us right now to know how far the Ukrainian front is advancing?
Yeah.
It's not. It's like, hey, thoughts and prayers to those people. I hope the war ends soon. I hope they figure something out. But
Yeah.
like, why is it useful to me to know how many Russian tanks were destroyed in the past week?
Yeah.
It's not. Right? And the same thing is true of anything. Like, when you're reading headline news about like what happened to the latest celebrity, you can trick yourself to thinking that that's useful.
Yeah.
Right?
And here's the thing, it's like that information is useful to someone. So it's like to that celebrity, that information is useful.
Yeah.
To the Ukrainians, how many Russian tanks are left is extremely useful. To me, none of that information is useful.
Reading
what am
about
I going to
Sam
do with it?
Bankman-Fried and what happened with FTX, that was useful because I'm invested in
There
some
you go.
Bitcoin
It was
stuff.
useless to me.
Right. It's like, so knowing what was happening to my investments
Yeah.
was kind of important.
It's like the information that's useful to me, I
Knowing
want to
what he
improve.
was doing in the Bahamas with his girlfriend is not useful.
Entirely useless.
But it's attached to the same story. So you can get tricked into thinking
Yeah.
that it's useful even though it's not. Mm-hmm. Right? And especially, I think news is the biggest contender for this. I've given up. I stopped reading any news at all whatsoever. Every once in a while, like, I'll see headlines and stuff, and I'll just like, I'll just like take it all in like it's a tarot card reading. I don't pop over in any articles. Like, when people send me YouTube videos or send me an article, I'll read the headline. If I don't know what the story's about from that, I don't bother. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not. Time is very valuable.
yeah.
I can't spend it reading each article that somebody sends me in depth just to have a formulated opinion to participate in a useless debate on something, right? It's one of the things. It's like, I look at our group chat that we have with our friends. I can't participate in every opinion or something like that. I've made a decision. I was like, I'll send a screenshot of something I find interesting every once in a while, but even that's not a link,
Yeah.
you know? It's like some things are even worth keeping to yourself. You'll waste a lot of time in your day just sharing information. Sharing information that's not going to help anybody.
Yeah.
It's like, how much time, I think I asked you this last time we tried talking about this, was how much time do you think we spend looking at memes every day?
Yeah, that's a huge one, dude. It's like scrolling Instagram.
Yeah.
That's the epitome of useless information. Because all that happens is you go, huh.
Even not. Like,
Yeah,
most
even
of it
less
is
than
not
that.
even funny,
Yeah.
right?
It's just useless information. It's not even like, oh, this is relevant to
You're
something,
like, I'm just familiarizing myself with the opinion of the masses.
which isn't even true.
No. You're...
That's what you do by reading the news.
Yeah. You're familiarizing yourself with the insane
Yeah,
people
read
who
the
only pay
YouTube
attention
comments.
to this, right?
Read the YouTube comments if you want the opinions of the masses.
Even that, like, I could not picture something more wasteful with your time than to read Twitter. Like, that's all Twitter is. It's the YouTube comment section in his own website
Without the video.
without the video. It's just
want the
absolute
video, though.
nonsense. What do I care what some old rock star has to say about, you
Yeah.
know, the COVID vaccine or something? Like, who cares, man?
Yeah. And it's like all of this sort of information, if it aligns with that goal you've got in mind,
Yeah.
then it's not useless. But if it doesn't, then it is useless.
If
The
you-
whole point is having that framework to decide for yourself what is useless and what is useful.
Yes.
Because it's beyond just what's useless information, what's wasted time. It's use that now that you've decided that to determine then what is useful information and what is well spent time.
When you are calibrating what your information circle is about, like what regular sources you check, you know, like I worked a little bit with a tech company that was doing a deal with The Economist at the time, and I had to do a full examination, like a review of what is it that The Economist apps offer. Right, and The Economist apps are very interesting because they take, like, they're basically a wide broken down e-edition with audio versions of everything that The Economist does in their articles, plus some podcasts and videos and who knows what. And then they have a second app, Economist Espresso, which tells you all the day's stories but broken down to like one paragraph snippets. So you're getting the information in bite size and then you move on.
Yeah.
You literally just have it with your morning and a coffee and move on.
Yeah.
I'm like, why would you even download the full app if you're getting all the same information? Like, how in-depth do you want your knowledge to be about the Chinese markets?
Yeah.
Like, maybe, hey, if you're an investor, maybe.
If you're
but,
deep in the Chinese markets, then yeah, you want the full story.
but if you're not,
Which is I am not.
yeah, it's a
So
waste of time.
I don't even need the headline.
Interesting information. Not really. Moving on, you know? But we're in a time and place where it's more and more convenient for you to actually find, because a lot of people are putting that kind of information together in those bite-sized chunks. There are apps which have libraries of books that they break down each synopsis, tell you the main points, tell you the main plot, and that's it.
Yeah.
So you don't have to spend the hours and it takes to read the book.
What? I feel like that's useless information at that point.
Probably even so, mostly is. But as useless as reading the whole book? Well,
no, because with the book, you get a story, you get characters, you get emotion, all that sort of stuff.
You get entertainment.
You get fun dialogue. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, I may as well read a Wikipedia page. Why do I need an app?
But I mean, you're not going to get story and characters with Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Right?
That's true.
Or some of these books.
Here, you know what was a good use of my time? Watching a half-hour video explaining all the ideas in Atomic Habits instead of reading the book Atomic Habits.
Watching somebody give you a discussion on the themes behind 1984.
Yeah.
The book 1984 is a great book, but also if you haven't read it by now, if you didn't want to read it and just the synopsis, get the idea, understand what people are talking about, move on, right? I'm not saying you should do that with everything. There are some things that you should sit down and read because you'll only get the feeling of them that way.
Like the Bible.
That's a good example. That's actually a very interesting one, because some people will do devotionals that break down what happened in every chapter. And sometimes to a lot of people that's more palatable than reading through every verse in every chapter, for instance, right? We're just it's
tough when you get to the genealogies.
Well, the Bible, for a lot of people, to read it is a meditative experience. So I would even say that's not even part of the entertainment or anything. That's part of their R&R every day.
Yeah.
Is to read the Bible, because that's like sitting down and participating in a meditative experience while you're taking in philosophical information or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're reading genealogies, which is, hey, that could be very calming. And then Ezekiel brought forth Uriel or something. It's just for pages and pages. If you just had a good voice just reading that out to you in an audiobook every day, it'd be very restful.
You'd fall asleep to that.
Yeah. And then on the third day, he begat. Actually, I would like to bring up one group of people that recently followed us on Instagram, and I love their newsletter, The Weekly Edible. Check them out. I really enjoy what they put out. I think they're switching over to Substack now, but they used to email.
Substack.
Sunday mornings, they would send a newsletter email out that gives an overview of the markets, what the biggest tech companies are doing, what's the biggest news story of the week.
Yeah.
Broken down into one newsletter, so you read the whole thing and you feel like, I'm well informed for the week. And that's all you needed.
Yeah.
I didn't need to stare at CBC for hours on end. It's like, I'm very curious who the regular people who log on to cbc.ca and just consume every single bit of information and documentary and podcast that they do. Just do that with a Forest Creek,
We summarize CBC's content.
Yeah. Here's the summary.
I don't think that's what CBC say.
That's what I'm saying. They don't need to know.
How you spend your time. With you want more money, then get a second job. Easy.
Yeah.
Instead of spending that time, I think one thing he said that was really good. He's like, if you're hanging out with friends, going to dinner, watching a feature-length movie, baking some food, doing whatever, it's like, then you don't have time for this.
One thing I was thinking about that is just be deliberate with your time.
Yeah.
Be deliberate with what you're going to do. If you're going to sit down and watch an episode of TV, just decide it's going to be 1 or 2 episodes.
My buddy actually he's a musician. He has a great line in one of his songs that's stuck with me for the last 7 or so years. Making choices out of habit.
Yeah.
I was like, dang, I do that all the freaking time.
Yeah.
And it's entirely wasteful. It's a huge waste of time to make a choice out of habit. Just doing it because you've always done that.
Oh, man, it's been a long day at work. I'm going to go through this McDonald's drive-thru like I have every day this week.
I'm going to sit home, have a beer, watch this show, watch this movie, watch this whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, how about take a step back, don't do that, eat some cucumber, and think about how to spend your time wisely.
Eat that cucumber. It's really good for you. Very hydrating, very good for your skin.
Yeah. Lots of minerals, vitamins.
But also, what are you watching?
Yeah. Is
it the next episode of Wednesday? Don't you kind of know where this whole thing is going?
is the #1 best use of your time? This
I'm learning
episode's
about
sponsored
what
by
the
Netflix.
#1 piece of our cultural entertainment is. But yeah, just be deliberate about your time. If you're gonna sit down and play video games, do it. Enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
Have a great time. Figure out when you're gonna stop.
Decide, yeah. That's
Yeah.
a huge thing, is decide how much. Because I remember, what did I have next to me? I had a plate of cookies next to me that I had made. And I didn't decide how many I was going to eat. And so while I was watching this episode, I ate all 7 of the cookies on that plate.
You bake them.
I baked them.
My God.
Yeah. And I put a bunch in a container to bring to some people. And I was like, well, I can't fit the rest in this container, so I'll put them on a plate next to me while I watch my show. And I just kept reaching over.
One by one.
Yeah, one by one, because they're freaking delicious. And it's,
Yeah.
well, I just had one, I'll have another.
And that's the thing, it's like you put all 7 on the plate out in
Yeah.
front of you, right?
I never decided I'm only going to have 2 cookies.
When you think about what you're watching, Netflix doesn't give you a limit.
Yep.
It gives you entire seasons of television.
Yeah.
You have to be the one to stop. Otherwise, it just goes continue watching,
You have
and
to
then it just
decide
rolls the
once
next
a
one
week.
for you.
You know, with that show that I was just talking about that I was watching, I decided I would only watch 1 episode a day.
Yeah.
And I successfully did that. I messed up once and watched 2 episodes a day, but whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing about TV shows, too, especially when they're streaming, is like the death of scheduling
Yeah.
in some sense. And
It's like, oh, was that 3 hours, huh?
when the episode's like a cliffhanger, you're like, okay, just one more. I have to find out what happened.
That's the worst.
But then you're going to do that with the end of this episode.
Exactly. And I found that.
And then next thing you know, you've seen the whole first season of Riverdale.
Exactly. Like, I was watching this show and I decided 1 episode a day. And every single day I had that whole, oh, I want to watch the next episode.
Yeah.
Every single day.
Yeah.
Which meant if I hadn't decided that, I would have watched 16 20-minute episodes in a single day.
Yeah.
And there's like, what, 4.5, 5 hours of my time? Boom.
When we were younger and there was no Netflix,
Yeah.
no streaming service like this,
You had to wait a whole freaking week.
you had to wait a week for the next episode.
Unless you were on the totally legal sites that had all of the episodes.
Well, like even when I was a kid, I was like, okay, I know I'm gonna watch this stretch of hours a day of television because I know that's where my favorite shows are on,
Yeah.
right? Whether or not it is Teen Titans or the X-Men or SpongeBob
Yeah.
or whatever, it's like it's in those stretch of hours.
Yeah.
So I know when I'm gonna watch TV and when I'm gonna stop,
Yeah.
because at the end of these hours, it turns into the Barbie show. Then I stop watching.
Yeah.
That was like as a kid, I
Yeah.
had that self-control, and now as an adult, Netflix is like, do you want to watch all of Stranger Things?
You don't need self-control.
No.
Just watch.
Don't even touch the television. It's gonna load in that next episode for you.
Every 6 hours it will say, oh, are you still watching? And you'll say, yes.
You'll be yes, Dad. Yes, Father. So be deliberate about your time. I do this by literally setting alarms.
Oh, dang.
I literally set an alarm for
it's-
like when I'm gonna stop playing Cyberpunk or something like that. You know, like when stop playing a video game. One of my favorite ways to track time, especially if it's a game that doesn't require me to pay attention or read things or that much of the plot, I'll put on a podcast while I'm playing the game, because that will tell me to stop playing at a certain point. Like when this is done, I'll have to do it. I actually used to do that with VR, because VR, I'll just have my phone playing a podcast somewhere else in the room.
Yeah.
And when it's done, or when it flips over to something else like music or something, I'll have to take off the headset to go and turn it off. It's a great way to, like, some people set alarms on their phones and then they put their phone in a charger across the room
Yeah.
to force themselves to get out of bed and go change it.
I do that. I guess my alarm's not on my phone anymore, but initially I had my alarm on my phone and my phone was in another room. So it would blast blues music and I would sit there and listen to it for a bit. But and then I'd get up and turn it off.
Yeah, the one time I was staying over with you at a different house and it just started blasting blues music, I was like, are we under attack? What's going on? Just like the screeching guitar at
And I
like
was like,
top volume.
yeah.
I was like, what is going on? How do I make it stop? Yeah. But I mean, there was no snooze button. No snooze button was applied.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are some things that you can do to use your time usefully and not waste it?
I think, to sum this whole thing up, the biggest thing is have a goal. Decide what you're working towards. Because if you don't know where you're going, then you don't know what information is useful and you don't know how to spend your time.
Or at least decide what you value, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be what is the milestone I'm going to reach today.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's, all right, what do I actually care about? I like golfing.
Yeah.
I want to spend time with my family. I want to be good at work.
Yeah.
So if I include these 3 things in a day, we're good. We're golden,
Yeah.
right? Watching Netflix is not helping me do that unless I'm doing it with my family in that context, right? And then even if you're doing it with your family, oh, honey, I got to get up to work in the morning. I'm going to go to bed.
Yeah.
Why are you still watching TV if your spouse has gone to bed?
Yeah.
Turn off, right? Same thing. It's like, oh, 9 o'clock, time to get the kids to bed.
Yeah.
That's a good time for you to stop watching TV too, for instance. And we're using Netflix here as our crutch. Some people sit down and play, I don't know, Valorant on their PC for hours. I've never played this game.
This also counts for Crave and Amazon Prime.
And Disney Plus.
No, that doesn't count.
You psycho.
I'm voting for Mickey.
If you're an adult, consider that most of your time, if not all of it, is wasted watching anything on Disney Plus. Even if they bought National Geographic. Even if they have all the... Hey, I'm sorry. David Attenborough telling you about the dolphins is not a great use of your time either.
What if it was narrated by Mickey Mouse instead?
If you're a marine biologist, maybe.
There you go.
Look at his dorsal fin.
You know what a dorsal fin is?
God. But nature documentaries are great, are really funny. It's like they're maybe one of the most informative thing people watch, and we can't even watch that much of it.
Nope.
We get bored. Like, is there a murder that's gonna happen?
Look into the eyes of a chicken.
Werner Herzog. You could see that the chicken has no soul. What is the most useful, least wasteful thing that you can do? Well, congratulations. You're already doing it. Thank you for listening to the Forest Creek podcast. We hope that we can be your guides towards doing more useful and less wasteful stuff. Taking in the very best of information. Helping you learn what you need to reach your goals and acquire your values and hold on to them and really have a fulfilling life. All you gotta do is like, share, subscribe.
And then we will tell you what your values are.
Yes. Stop listening to the news. Cancel whatever it is you're paying to The Economist or CBC or any of these people. You never need to watch another streamer again. Every morning I'll just make Jared tell you what's up.
There you go.
And what's up is you. And your goals. And your values. Nothing else is important. That's it. Just live a very self-absorbed in your circle.
Yeah, that's...
The only voice that should penetrate into your bubble is mine. And it should always be this show.
And all I'll say is, it's all about you.
Literally, bring up your Instagram right now. Unfollow everybody except at the Forest
Including
Creek.
us.
No,
And then
excluding
uninstall Instagram.
hey man, get yourself a minimalist phone launcher. We're just talking about that to Chance. He got
Yeah.
one. It's changing his life. Changing yours too. The Forest Creek, at The Forest Creek on Instagram, Twitter, and many other social platforms. The Forest Creek on Spotify, youtube.com/@TheRealForestCreek. We're working on a couple of videos that are going to be released very soon, and we're working on our website. A lot of branding updates that are coming up. But for now, if you want to get in contact with us about something that you enjoyed or will enjoy listening to on this show, or perhaps explored on our videos, or if you are someone who is setting up your business, who is running a business, who is looking to pursue a project, if you are selling a product, if you are offering a ministry, if you need media, if you need something audio or video, you can contact us at theforestcreek@gmail.com, from documentaries to training videos to real estate listings. So hit us up at that wonderful email I just mentioned, theforestcreek@gmail.com, and we will do our very best to make sure that you are satisfied with all your media needs. Jared just gave you a snap thumbs up. It kind of got caught in some wires there for a second, but everything else we do is clean.
It's all part of the charm.
So stay tuned to what we're developing here. We're going to put out a bunch more exciting stuff. I'm thinking we should do one of these self-help things every month.
Every month?
Every month, just get on here with some piece of wisdom. You know? But for now, just remember, most of what you listen to out there, most of what you come across is useless information. Most of the way you're spending your time is wasted. Unless it's at this show. Bye-bye.